In this video, I'm going to share with you how to make money running retreats. I've packed a ton into this episode, so get ready. By the end, you'll have a complete and pretty comprehensive idea about how you can make money running retreats, which is what I do for a living, and I love it. You'll also have a really good idea of how to organize your retreats, how to structure them so that they're aligned with your personality so that you enjoy them just as much as your participants do. I'll also map out a few different retreat business model options, as well as explain why the business model for your retreats is so important. And I'll explain the details of each one, as well as a few shortcuts that you can use. I'll cover the distinction between hosting your own retreats versus planning retreats for other people. I'll cover which is the most profitable retreat model, in my opinion, and how to start a retreat business making money. I'll even touch on how you could make money running a retreat center, and then I'll share some tools and resources that I recommend. Let's get started. Okay, first let's start with how to make money hosting your own retreats. Now here's the thing, most people, when they start to run retreats, the first thing they think about is, where am I gonna host it? How many days is it gonna be? What cool experiences am I gonna offer? What kind of food and amenities am I gonna provide? And all of that is well and good, but when you do that, what you're doing is you're positioning yourself squarely in the most competitive space when it comes to retreats. You're building your retreat around the production rather than the promise. And the thing about that type of retreat is that often what you do is each time you run a retreat, you are running something different. You're finding a new venue, you have new details to coordinate, and it puts you in the role of event producer, which a lot of us don't really enjoy, or at least I don't really enjoy. So I found a little bit of a different way of approaching retreats that's less focused on the production and more focused, like I said, on the promise. So what's the promise of a retreat? Well, the promise is the outcome that people get from having participated in it. You can deliver an incredible experience, but the focus is really on, what do they walk away with? How are they transformed? How are they different when they leave versus when they came in? When you do that, when you focus on the promise instead of the production actually becomes less important. And as a matter of fact, you can often spend a lot less on the production when you have what I call a really juicy promise. By the way, don't mind my puppy in the background. His name is Neo, and he loves to participate when I'm shooting videos. So the model that I propose to you, and the one that I've focused a lot of my YouTube videos on, is one that I call the big back end model. So instead of running a retreat based on this one experience that requires a whole lot of production, instead you're creating an experience that you can rinse and repeat, one that you hone and make an experience that people walk away with something valuable from. And then from that experience, here's the kicker, that experience itself is not actually the big money maker. From that experience, you then enroll those attendees or participants into something longer term, something that lasts. See, once people have an incredibly powerful and transformational experience together, they tend to bond, and then they don't want to lose touch. Now, you can either let them stay in touch on their own and let them keep that magic going by themselves, or you can offer them something that provides a program, a structure around maintaining that transformation. That's what I call the big back end. The big back end is some sort of long-term program. Mine is a year long. The first year, there's 1 year, and then people can stay years after that. And they pay by the month. So it's a 1-year program, they pay by the month, and what that does for my business, and what could do for your business, is create some monthly recurring revenues and some stability. So, by the way, I have a variety of videos on this topic. In fact, I have a whole playlist on retreats as a business and the best way to set up a retreat business model that's not just focused on the one-time retreat, but actually focuses on that big back end. And in addition to all those videos, why don't you subscribe to my channel? That way you'll get notified every time I come out with a new video. And I do come out with them daily. So there's a lot to see on my channel. So hosting your own retreats is not the only way to make money planning retreats. You can also plan retreats for other people. Now, I'm going to mention this, but I'm going to keep it brief because this is not my area of expertise, nor is it something that I would ever want to do. But I thought that it was important to just mention the idea that often there are people like me out there that want to run retreats for a living, but don't necessarily want to produce them or organize them or plan them. So there's a big opportunity, in my opinion, to meet up with people like me and plan retreats for them if event planning and production is something that you enjoy. But here's the thing, it requires a certain personality, someone who really loves the details, checking off boxes on lists, somebody who is really good at meeting deadlines. Event planning and production, in my opinion, in my experience, is something that requires a lot of time, attention, and energy, and event planning and production tends to be a somewhat commoditized business model. Providing those services, people generally pay by the hour or pay by the project. Doesn't have that long-term opportunity that I talked about earlier, that when you host your retreats yourself and you can use your retreats as a lead-in to a bigger, more long-term, more profitable program. That said, this is still an opportunity, and if you're a really good event planner or producer and you want to produce and plan events, let me know, because I know plenty of people who are looking for people like you. So now let's talk about how to start your retreat business, your retreat hosting business, making money. There are 11 steps to this. So I'm going to start with number 1, and I'm going to go pretty quickly through these because I've covered them in depth and at length in my other videos on my retreats playlist. The first one is purpose. And purpose is why you're going to do this. What is the thing about this that's driving you, that's calling you forward to it? It's passion too, because what I've seen people do is start these types of businesses because they know that there's a market opportunity, but they don't necessarily feel that purpose or passion. And that's a really key foundational piece of doing this and having it last for the long haul. The second thing is knowing the people that you're going to serve. The people that you serve are important because when you know your people well, you really understand what they want and need, which actually leads me into the third item, which is the problem or the pain points. When you know your people and you know their problems and pain points, you can build a retreat promise that addresses those problems and pain points, that attracts them to you. So instead of, like I said earlier, marketing, hey, I've got a 5-day yoga retreat in Mexico, instead of saying you have a 5-day yoga retreat in Mexico, which then you're competing with all the other yoga retreats all around the world. If instead you say, I have a 5-day transformational experience where you're going to find your purpose and passion in life, then it kind of doesn't matter how many days it is or where it is. You have more ability to play with the logistics and production because you're solving a problem, because you're meeting someone's need, because you're going to help them achieve this outcome of finding their purpose and passion. So once you know the problems and solutions, I already kind of gave this away, that leads you to the promise. What is the promise of your retreat? What is that juicy outcome? And then, of course, once you know what that promise is, this is a little bit of a nuanced piece, which is finding your premise. Now, the premise of a retreat is why they need to do this piece first before they can have the really big long-term transformational outcome. So the premise is something that's leading into that big back end that I talked to earlier. So why do you have to do this breakthrough first in order to get the big transformation? Let me give you an example. Leanne Webster is one of my clients, and she has a retreat called Lead Machine Weekend, okay? So Leanne's purpose is, and passion in life, is email marketing. She wants to elevate email marketing and help entrepreneurs market themselves more effectively through email marketing. Her people are entrepreneurs and marketers who want to drive new business through email marketing. The problem and pain point they have is that they're not capitalizing on the people they're meeting at events. They're getting business cards, throwing them in a drawer. They are not capturing people online. They're not building a list. They're not communicating consistently. The promise that her retreat offers is come for one weekend, we're going to map it all out, and we're going to implement it so that by the time you leave, you have this landing page, lead magnet, email marketing sequence, all this stuff that you need to market yourself via email. And now the premise of it is the reason they need to do this first is because until they start to have this capture ability to build their list, they can't start communicating with their list on an ongoing basis and driving leads through email marketing, which is the long-term strategy. The premise of her retreat is you got to get this technology stuff down first before you can really capitalize on email marketing or start building your list. Once you have your promise and your premise, now it's time to look at the pricing and packaging of your offering. What is this worth to your ideal client? And I'm going to tell you this, I'm not going to go deep into pricing. I have a whole video on that, but I will say this, the biggest problem that I see with people trying to create a retreat in this format, in this model that I'm sharing, is that they tend to underprice their retreat because they're still stuck in that old model of pricing based on it's a trip, it's amenities, it's a location, it's a certain number of days. Like, would people spend $3,000 for 3 days? Well, if you have a juicy enough promise, they will. So I invite you and encourage you to check out more of my videos, subscribe to my channel because I talk a lot about how to raise your price and your value. In addition, once you have your pricing and your packaging, you're looking at positioning, finding your market in the world, finding that niche, finding those people and where they're hanging out and where you can place your marketing so that they can see it. I'm not going to get into marketing on this video, but I do have videos about how to market and promote your retreats as well. And then finally, the home stretch is we got to look at planning. Planning is all the logistics and organization. Like I said, ideally you'd want to hire somebody to take care of that for you so that you don't become a glorified event planner. And then of course, performance. Delivering the very best retreat you can. And that starts with you taking good care of yourself and showing up energy rich to lead this retreat. If you're stressed out or flustered or tired, you're not going to lead a great retreat. Last but not least is the pitch, which is the offering that you're going to make at your retreat into the next thing that you're going to offer, the big back end. Like I promised, I'm also going to mention something that I think is worth considering. If you're someone who loves retreats, loves delivering these experiences for people, then also one business model that works really well with this is to have a retreat center. Now that's a whole different business model. And my advice is that once you have a retreat that you know how to deliver, that you know works, that would be a good time to then expand into creating a retreat center to deliver that retreat and maybe possibly even to let other people deliver their retreats. That's a great business model that you invest in something one time and then you're able to rent it or lease it out to other people. Finally, I promised you some tools and resources. One of my favorite tools is Airbnb. And also kind of a similar website is VRBO. This is where I find most, if not all, of our venues for our retreats. We also do retreats at hotels, and that's great too. But what I love about Airbnbs and VRBOs is that you have more autonomy, more sovereignty to do what you want. So for example, at a hotel, you're usually stuck buying their food and getting their coffee, which can be really expensive. Meanwhile, at an Airbnb, you can bring in a chef, you can cook your own food, there are lots of different ways to save money and to even provide a more intimate and community bonding experience. So those are a couple of my favorite resources. And I've also delivered retreats virtually through Zoom. So that's another option to consider. And I have a whole video about how to do a virtual retreat via Zoom. So check that one out. So if this type of business model interests you, there's so much more that I could tell you about this. I did my best to squeeze it all down into this video. And go to retreatstorichesroadmap.com to get my free resource. I have an entire one sheet that walks you through the process of all the steps that you need to consider when you're creating a retreat and running them to make money. Enjoy.